Welcome to the 2024 Dodge Poetry Festival's virtual session, The Body, a Praise Song. I'm Isabel Gonzalez, Senior Consultant with Poetry at NJPAC, and I'm thrilled to be joined by festival poets Meg Day, Cynthia Manick, Leah Lakshmi Piepshna Shamar-Singha, and Denez Smith. We're also joined by our ASL interpreter, Emily Phipps. In this session, we invite you, dear listeners, to celebrate with us all the ways our bodies are both strong and vulnerable. This reading and conversation is an opportunity to praise our bodies, their functionalities and frailties, and acknowledge all the ways in which we are connected despite the differences in our bodies. Let us witness the intersections of the body and the spirit. Our brilliant poets today will read for 10 minutes, and then we'll create space for a conversation led by our poets. Meg, Cynthia, Leah, and Denez, I look forward to the curiosities you will offer each other, and I'm excited to hear each of your praise songs.
Thank you. This is Meg Day speaking. My pronouns are they, them. I am a white transmasculine kid with hearing aids, wearing a denim shirt in front of a white wall. I'm joining you virtually from Durham, North Carolina, which is on the unceded land of Saponi people. I'm going to read 4 poems that center my own experience of moving inside of the ableism and autism of contemporary American poetics, which assumes always that the reader is hearing and traditionally refuses anything but a phonocentric or audiocentric understanding of poetics and what it means maybe to have lyricism or musicality. These poems tend topics of deaf gain, of moving between hearing and deaf worlds, of the way that harm is carried from our larger lives into our private and more intimate ones, and also aims to reimagine, I hope, as a kind of offering of grace, histories that maybe haven't been so kind. This poem's called 10 a.m. is when you come to me. In some other life, I can hear you breathing, a pale sound like running fingers through tangled hair. I dreamt again of swimming in the quarry and surfaced here when you called for me in a voice only my sleeping self could know. Now the dapple of the aspen respires on the wool and the shades cut its song a staff of light. Leave me, that me, in bed with a woman who said all the sounds for pleasure were made with vowels I couldn't hear. Keep me instead with this small sun that sips at the sky blue hem of our sheets, then dips and reappears. A drowsy penny in the belt of Venus, your aureole nodding slow and copper as it bobs against cotton in cornflower or clay. What a waste the groan of the mattress must be. When you backstroke into me and pull the night up over our heads, your eyes are 2 moons I float beneath. And my lungs fill with a wet hum, your hips return. It's Sunday. Or so you say, with both hands on my chest. And hot breath is the only hymn whose refrain we can recall. And then you reach for me like I could have been another man. You make me sing without a sound. I want you to understand what your sound does to me. So I take you to the field and scream. I scream the rooting pig from its soft earth, nose covered in dirt. I scream the shade from the grazing horse among the trees. I scream the dead rabbit out its resting place, and I scream the vulture back from the sky. When it lands, I scream the grass quiet. Every blade. Each deep burrow evacuates its snakes and beetles, its litters of kits. I scream my incision sites blurry with reverb. I shake with it until you become too many for me to field alone, and then I scream harder until you are one again and smaller, single and still. I scream the ground wet beneath us. My scream pulls the squirrel from its branch and the raccoon from its upright hollow, and the stray pricks its ears but keeps moving. I scream until I have a tail. I scream my own tail curled, scream so heavy it shifts the block on my chest a full inch, scraping, leaving marks. I scream the kindness from your face. It slides slowly to the left and goes all the way around before returning to my scream, still hung there in the air like a smell between us, like a sour, outdated name, like a yellow jacket you anger by trying to wave away. This third poem takes its title, it's called Reasonable Accommodation. And it takes its title from the 1990 legislation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires access and accommodation be provided only when it is reasonable. You've met me halfway between the door to our bedroom and the other I doubt is real only because you are always gesturing, there it is, as if getting to an exit is as simple as its existence, as if your body, real or imagined, does not make a door a taunt you can point to but not touch. You touch me like I'm a door that won't open. The first fight ended here too. My back to the wall and your body keeping it there. Every hand and mouth an act of contrition in an argument I was sure I'd misheard until you were kneeling to beg me, stay. Only then did I understand yours was a language of secret orders and mine a language of hidden sounds you thought you had to teach me yourself. Tonight, my shoulders relax into the dimples they make in the drywall, the pair of them joining the others in repetition down the hallway, a stampede through snow. Look at the tracks they've left, all the animals my body didn't mean to be. Tonight, there is no feast. Tonight, you are only sorry God's name is the one I choose to say aloud when you touch me like you believe you could put a door anywhere if you just push hard enough. Like if I wasn't so unreasonable, I could just accommodate myself. Like if it's so hard, why don't you just leave? There it is. There I am, opening a door in a wall with a body I should want to exit. You touch me like I'm an animal that needs correcting. You touch me like it's for my own good. And wasn't this my request? Didn't I ask you to speak to me only with your hands? This last poem I'm going to read came out of one of my favorite poems, The Oriole by Nikki Finney. And I'm grateful to lineages, to texts that lead us, to elders and ancestors that make way, even as they are not as present as we'd like, and even as they are not living alongside us. So with gratitude, this poem's called It Must Still Be Summer. It must still be summer because the tent goes up easy in the bluegrass and we loiter past sundown without sleeves. The sunset One thing we can watch that won't require captioning and isn't each other. What did you say then? Hand cupped to my ear as if it would send more than winter across my arm. What did I believe I knew of language in that moment before everything about me became true? I followed you into the dark like a vowel, a train disappearing into a tunnel at the end of a light. It's night in the tent. And my eyes can't help but deny my ears, so it's my hands that go dowsing for sound. The push broom sweep of our sleeping bags and the hourglass sand of their slow unzip. I catch your lip in the gold leaf glare of your neighbor's third shift headlights, wet road rumble in my hips and yellow cymbal flashbang through your hair. I don't care how it happened, only that it did. 1 minute, an eternity with you tracing the bones in my face with your read-along finger, mouthing me out. Quiet, common mispronunciation I still let slide between my thighs at the right octave. Another, and you are all wicker, flank, soft muzzle in my palm. What makes a woman who is barely a woman move like this? What secret grammar do you know? I feed apple fingers past eager lips smacking on 13 plus 1, the heat of you sucking at the M of my name sign, my Girl Scout promise. What part of your body isn't saying my name? Say it again. Say it louder. This is the last night of my life when hands remain only one kind of mouth. Whose tongue is this, and where did you learn it? What made you invent a new chord? Then made me play it like a siren for a 3-alarm fire, summon new gods with their good names hot at the reed of my jaw like some kind of symphony, disarmed of melody. All these questions, and the answer right there at the end of my arm. Thank you.
Oh, my name is Cynthia Manick. My pronouns are she, her. I'm coming virtually from Tuscany, Italy, and I am a brown woman with black glasses and blue hair. I'm going to read 4 poems for you today. There'll be poems about lineage of the body, living in a Black female body that is large, living in a big body that is sometimes other, but also a praise of the body within the universe. The first poem is called, Is This Your Sky or Mine? And I think it talks about when you realize you're a parent with someone before they were a parent. Is this your sky or mine? I try to quantify what we inherit. Dancers' legs that know how to roam, but be church pious by morning. The ability to fold shirts into a perfect square, or the street walk that says, I am a willing dove, but need no man or pierced jewelry. I've learned that when the grease bubbles, you put the fish in. Nail polish will stop a run in any stocking. Did you mean to build something that lasts? I want to give you a cinematic backstory, far from Southern charms and swamp boys, but I can't picture your shift from girl to woman, mine but not, strong but not. You tuck the girdle in so the belly doesn't roll, curl the feet like commas. The body just births more questions, and that's my future. I've always been quietly wild, and I'm sorry for talking too fast, too much, but I'm trying to catch all the anchored parts of you. Rough magic, farm tales of double-yolked eggs, a collage of memories trapped in photo albums because you rarely cover old ground. I think every poem I write is about you, Mama. This next poem is dedicated to those who get catcalls. Now, some catcalls are okay. Hey, miss, how you doing? Other catcalls go too far. This poem is called Baby, What's Your Favorite Body Part? Baby, what's your favorite body part? A blue-collar man asked, with his mouth shaped like a preacher's, gaze the size of wishes, and part of my rib cuts open. Something heavier than a sequoia tree settles in its place. Gone is the practiced Josephine Baker head tilt. My imagined swagger of a bolero singer or flamenco star. I hear damn like a buttered biscuit. I wish you greased mine. Who knows how not to blossom? Be weld aim lightning to a sweaty wrist. Kick like a dark flank, the family friend who hugs you just a little too. Those who say mine when you are silent. I want these dancers' legs pulled from a womb to know when to speak. Run, be cocoa butter shine and woman. I wish those meant a hex they can't breathe out. Adrenaline like arsenic, loose stool, a wraith of mothers named Caroline and Mary, a pot of sisters called Princess and Maya, following them whenever it's dark. This next poem is for those who've been to the gynecologist. It's called Dear Future Body, Keep Your Skin Thick. Yesterday, my legs were propped in stirrups, as the gyno said. You should go on The Biggest Loser. I heard cities at the skull base, stuttering over each other, vying in vows of your roles and the garden under your chin. The implied real estate of, don't you want to be beautiful? We have known the trap of nameless and hungry BMI indexes. Dear God, in sample size fashion, I escape and get caught in the same geography again and again, unmade and remade. I forget I am more than a house of great bones, of Vaseline and Werther's Originals. The cacophony of a well-meaning, she has such a pretty face. I'm writing to tell you about a type of war. People carving the cavalry horses to survive, the outline of social media models, and how many calories is this bottle of air? What else can we eliminate? I always thought the planet Pluto was a black girl, now downgraded and mostly out. Dear future body, take a break today. Tell me, how are your kisses? Sometimes they give birth to promises, a season in the word, oil and oxygen at the ready. Are you someone's night bloom? Remember to trace what remains, the prayers your mouth learns. I want us living, not just alive. This next poem, I was actually asked to write a poem about love. And I feel like when writing a poem about love, but love of place and love of existence. This poem is called There Are No Unsacred Spaces. I'm trying to tell you that the world is beautiful. All the hellos we say in a week or month, the way the grooves of the grin know what to do. Think about the first time man went from 4 legs, hairy knuckles folded over, to 2. The moment in the spine realized it could brace against its cage, that the bones wouldn't splinter or spark. The sound that escaped. From that height, where did the eyes look first? I bet he wondered about who feeds the sun, who can stand next to him. I'm trying to tell you something about the universe. You connect each lake and ocean with a pencil. They mirror constellations. The barking stars are like dimes. They know about the tenderness of orchids, as if their sides were made to contain opposites, like we contain opposites. They know that the surf never takes everything. A body always documents where it's been, down to the horseshoe grab. I'm trying to tell you that it's okay to curse God a little. That your mother keeps giving you plants that you overwater or underwhelm, to cast burden over joy, piss over water, 'cause hurt can get so loud sometimes. I'm trying to tell you that history doesn't begin with language, with words on top of words. It begins with skin and wonder and touch, like that dating app with welders and endangered blacksmiths. They enter every unlit space with their craggy nicked hands, then curve the letter A from the shape of an ox. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Leah Lakshmi Piepshnasamrasinghe. I use they and she pronouns. I am a non-binary femme person of Sri Lankan and white ascent who has freshly dyed teal curly hair that matches the walls of my living room and bright pink lips that match my pink velvet couch in the background. And I'm zooming into you from West Philly, Lenape territory. These are 4 poems. They're all about the disabled, queer, brown, working class, visceral at the end of the world. This first one is called XOXO, Your Messy, Nasty Crip House. My garbage can's stuffed full with bloody pads. There's a double half-moon shaped ass smear of blood crocus on the toilet seat. The tub needs a scrub. There's a cat tree I've needed someone to come pick up for 2 weeks now, riding shotgun in my hallway. No one is coming. There's rubble on the floor. Yes, rubble. Used napkins crumpled everywhere. Yes, the recycling is full again. What a scandal. It looks like a crazy person lives here. Survey says they do. Also a sick person. You know that cycle when your house is gross and you need help, but you won't let anyone over your house because it's gross? That one. Maybe I'll be on the news. I'm seeing spots in front of my eyes from blood loss, so yay, that means I can't see all the way to what a shame my house is. I don't seem like an adult. That's fine. I'm a crippled adult, maybe slowly bleeding to death because the next I'm a crippled adult, maybe slowly bleeding to death because the next new patient opening is in June, and the hospitals are stuffed full of dying people in hallways as bombs rain down on the rest of the world, paid in full. This is me saying, wherever you are feeling like an embarrassed loser, I love you in your dirty ass house. Even if we die alone here, we are not the shame. This next one is called I Want to Kill the Whole Entire Medical Industrial Complex for You. I want to kill the whole ass medical industrial complex for you. I want to kill every fucker who killed Carrie Ann and Jerica and Heather and people I don't know and now won't because ableism killed them, who might, Ichie, did kill you because you are a fat Asian femme with a vent in her throat who needed a damn cancer surgery. I won't forget how long they left you in the hallway after that CAT scan. No vent, no pain meds, hallway. I want to kill every motherfucker who's ever said to me, oh, I don't think we really need to do a biopsy. Oh, I don't think you really need that medication. Oh, I didn't think to check the lymph nodes. I want to kill every one of those bastards who kill us with pats on the head, 4-hour hold times, and indifference. I want to kill every motherfucker who told me to trust them, who asked if maybe I was just a little depressed, who refused to give me the imaging a few of the million times I asked. I want to murder the ones who told me they really didn't care if I understood what was happening, just if they could charge me for it. I want to commit mass murder, which will just start to make up for every time they said your life was worth less than the $1,000 the antibiotic you knew you needed cost. Go ahead, call me another autistic mass shooter risk. I don't care. No made-up murder I write about in a poem can make you be alive again. Thank you. That poem was censored by a university because they were like, they will call the cops on you and they will call you an autistic mass shooter risk. This is the purpose of poetry. This next one is called I Know Crips Live Here, and it's Crip, short for cripple, the reclaimed disabled way. I know Crips live here. So many couches and blanket throws. I know Crips live here, a bathroom filled with coconut oil, unscented conditioner, and black soap. I know Crips live here, your Hermira and tea on the bottom shelf of the fridge in prime position. I know Crips live here, only house on the block with a homemade ramp, property standards stay so mad about it. I know Crips live here, big exhale at the shower chair, the slip pads, and the air purifier. I know Crips live here. I see all the things in reach around your mattress of glory. I know Crips live here. Straws and poise pans and crosswords and weighted blankets and stim toys. I know Crips live here. You've been home for a couple days, a week. That's the imprint of your ass in the couch, surrounded by empty bags of food and the Advil in the heating pad. I know Crips live here. 50-pound bag of Epsom salts from the farm store, your painkiller display like an altar. I know Crips live here. I see your EBT card and your FOT4 DSHS care attendant. I know Crips live here. Taught yourself to be an herbalist so you could afford to manage your pain. I know Crips live here. Everybody late. I know Crips live here. Your dogs, cats, and stuffed animals are part of your family. I know Crips live here. Your disabled parking placard, a candle in the window to guide me. I know Crips live here. Welcome. You are home. And this last one is about the mass disabling event of the genocide against Reza. And it's called Thursday, November 23rd, 2023. In the thick dust of death in a dry mouth, in 78 ton of buried bone, in a curl of children in one incubator, eyes naked, accusing, and alive. In the angel gay face starting the morning Instagram, hello, I am still alive again. In the stranger friends on Jitsi blotting arrest, cheerful. In the friend who can't look at the supermarket meat anymore because it reminds them of body parts once child held by father. In the place where all the bullshit falls away, calls, what will you do? What will you do? Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for those poems. Thank you for bringing Gaza into the room. Free Palestine always. Always until we don't got to say it no more. Thank you, Leah, Cynthia, Meg, for all those incredible poems. Oh my God, so and live. Y'all are people whose work I love, but to be in this room feels like a blessing. Hello, everyone. My name is Dinez Smith. I am a Black, dark-skinned, non-binary person. I look very masculine today. I use they, them pronouns. I'm wearing an orange shirt, gold hoop earrings. Behind me is my office, which has white walls, a TV, a bookshelf, and up top, a crucifix made of toilet paper that has been glittered and glued. I am coming to you today from Minneapolis, which is on unceded Dakota and Ojibwe land. And yeah, I am also very upset that I have to go last because all those poems are incredible. I think the first two poems today I'm going to read are about our bodies in relation to each other. I think particularly about the mother body as it relates to queerness and gender. This first poem is called Colorado Springs. She's crying for all of us, her brother, son, me, everyone, someone's boy. Before the wedding, Henny wrecked, loved whelmed, meaning well, so much, she says. Black boys go through these days, gay, transgender, gang banging. I know what she means. I try to not be criminalized. I know she doesn't see us as crimes, maybe sins, but sense to her. Since I know my own mother, I know she means the bodies she didn't think, or the bodies we didn't think our sons would lay down. The men we never imagined would seek our sons in the night. Our boys, dressed in those colors, monochrome and prism strained, flagging what we hoped wouldn't find them. I know. When I pressed my purple stone to my mother's breast, what flooded her wasn't disgust, but sickness. knowing what violences might rush her once blue babe, now cut to pink meat, red as honesty, those blood-ill premonitions, love, their own bodies, other boys. All mothers know anything can hunt a son, a fear so animal language cannot tame nor reason. Later, before the wedding, in the woods at the mountain's feet, love points out a mushroom that looks like a coin. It do. Earthy currency, a metal soft and chewable, fragile platinum. Even if I was Mother Earth, I couldn't expect this wild change, fleshy and star-bright steel bloom. I wouldn't know it grew like this too. Dirt rising into armor. She didn't know we grow up fine. My mother loves her purple child deeper and truer, even though what she feared would scar me left its mark. I know she meant well. I know love shoots beyond language and sense. Mothers, if we make it through it all. Love, find our sons. Body, hold our babies well. Free them from all cages, even if it's what we named them. Violence, don't lust after our boys and call it kin. If you must find our babies in the midst of their lives, leave a wound we can dress. And may we not be the scars they stitch lonely in the mother gone dark. All right. So now I'm gonna read a couple. That was from my most recent collection that just came out. These two are from my previous one. This one again, thinking about the body and lineage, right? The gendered body, the trans body, the bodies that maybe we call for in the future that we await for. This also made for a lot of awkward Christmases and Thanksgivings for a little bit. But I think the important thing, as I told my family, is that because the title is Waiting on You to Die so I can be myself. And I had to tell them, I don't want you to die. I want something in you to die so that we may actually live and love together. Waiting on you to die so I can be myself. 1,000 years of daughters. Then me. What else could I have learned to be? Girl after giving herself to herself, one long ring shout name, a monarchy of copper and cold shoulders. The body, too, is a garment. I learned this best from the snake undulating out of her pork rind dress. I crawl out of myself into myself, take refuge where I flee. Once I snatched out my heart like a track and found not a heart, but two girls forever playing slide on the porch in my chest. Who knows how they keep time? They could be a single girl, doubled and joined at the hands. I'm stalling. I want to say something without saying it, but there's no time. I'm waiting for a few folks I love dearly to die so I can be myself. Please don't make me say who. The garments I'd buy if my baby wasn't alive, if they woke up at their wake, they might not recognize that woman in the front making all that noise. Cool. All right. Last poem. And after this one, we will come back on screen and we'll have a little discussion for a little bit for you all. A discussion for the future, because y'all ain't gonna see this today. This last poem is called Undetectable. In 2014, I was diagnosed with HIV. And thanks to the grace of modern medicine, although not the grace of modern medicine, like shout out to Gilead, who makes all the HIV antivirals. I really related to Leah saying I want to kill the whole medical industrial complex of you. I want to murder them. So much. But but they tell you the thing that you want to be with the current drugs is to become undetectable, which means that the virus, the viral load in your blood and in your fluids is so low that it cannot come up on a test, and you can't transfer it to any partner that you have. Yeah, so this is called Undetectable. Soundless, it crosses a line, quiets into a seed, and then whatever makes a seed. Almost like gone, but not gone. The air kept its shape. Not antimatter, but the memory of matter, or of it mattering. It doesn't cross my mind now that it's a whisper so soft it's almost silence. But it's not. Someone dragged the screaming boy so deep into the woods, he sounds like the trees now. Gone enough, almost never here. Daily, swallowed within a certain window, a pale green trail on the tongue the pale green pill makes before it's divvied amongst the ghettos of blood, dissolves and absolves my scarlet brand, ritual and proof. Surely science and witchcraft have the same face. My mother praises God for this, and surely it is his face too. Regimen, you are my miracle. This swallowing, my muscular colt. I'm not faithful to much. I'm less a genius of worship than I let on, but the pill, emerald dialect, singing the malady away. Not away. Far enough. For now. I am the most important species in my body. But one dead boy makes the whole forest a grave. And he's in me, in there, in the middle of all that green. You probably thought he was fruit. Cool. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna invite my other panelists to come back onto the video screen, the video stage. Thank you all so much for those fantastic readings. I think we made a little bit of magic happen today between us. And I'll start us off with a question. I want to know, have you always been comfortable letting your body be seen in poems? And if not, what changed? What gave you permission to or demanded that you show up embodied in the work?
For me, I was always about craft and writing about writing about what's outside of myself, writing about family, writing about lore, writing about the past. It was never me. To my second book, I was like, you know what? This book is gonna be more me than any book that I've ever written before. And so now I feel like I'm more me, and my poems are more me, and that includes the body.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Leah. I don't know if you saw me, but when you asked that question, I was like now my sound was up. is making me think of something that she probably doesn't remember, but Tara Betts said to me years ago, because we both
Mm.
came to the slam and we were both, it was like, it might have been like 2004, something like that. And we were like, what's happening with slam? And she was like, she says, I'm like, there's poems I want to write that I don't want to read at a slam because when you read at a slam, you want people to go, yeah. And these are poems that are going to make people go, hmm. And
Mm,
for me, until I found the disability justice movement, I did not, I had two books out and I was not writing about chronic illness or disability despite getting sick when I was 21 and I'm 49 now. Shout out some moisturizer and a tiny bit of melanin. But because I just was like, but it's not that my body wasn't there because I
mm,
needed to be, even if I didn't believe in being a disabled exception, I was young and sick and I needed to be on the stage and get a 10. So my disabled body was still there. I just wasn't writing about it in that way. And then I found Sins Invalid, which was a crew of, led by and founded by two Black disabled queerdos who were writing Black and Indigenous and Brown disabled queer bodies. And I just sat
mm,
there with my mouth open, being like, I didn't know you could do that on television, And
mm,
I'll just say that, and I mean, it is that chicken or the egg thing of like, you can always write stuff before there's a space for it. But if you don't know if you don't know there's going to be an audience who can receive it or mentors who can push you and give you possibility model for, sorry, I'm being autistic lawn, but I'll just try and I'll make this brief. Um, when I first performed at Sins in 2009, one of my long-term collaborators was like, I've never seen you be so present on stage. And I was like, yeah,
mm,
we had an access check-in and there was food and it wasn't up 3 flights of stairs at the queer bar. So I could show up with my disabled body. And
mm,
I was coming out of a much more working class brown spoken word tradition where you just show up and do it, which is beautiful. And also I had to closet my disability. So of course I wasn't going to make it in the poems.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, or there's no interpreter. Like, how many slams have you been to with an interpreter, right? Like, there's something really, really, like, what a gift, spoken word, and like the slam culture of like embodiment. And there you are, and the stage is accessible or it's not. Um,
Mm,
I the thing for me has been like trying to push aside sort of like the colonial urges of English on the
mm,
page, and like, how do you put a deaf body on the page? Like, I'm still pissed about it. I haven't figured it out. Like, we're working with like ASL glasses, and we're trying to put like, screenshots of ASL dictionaries into our
mm,
work, and it's getting called experimental, which like maybe it is. And also, come on.
mm,
So I'm still trying to figure out like what rooms I'm allowed to be a body in.
mm,
And I don't think that's new, but it's strange to like work with folks in print culture or like digital culture in text, and have a lot of resistance to like the image.
mm,
Um, like, that's what I have.
mm.
So
I feel so much power in what you just said. Like, who is it experimental for, right? This is not experimental. This is my language, right? Um, and I think it's coming back to at a recent conference, we were thinking about like even that term, the avant-garde, right? Which it might be useful for some folks, right? But for some, it might be this is the only way I can create. And so even though it might be outside of status quo or expectation for you, this is the language, the image I have for Reach For. Meg, I was so moved today by the ends of your poems, how you always bring us back to the hands in a couple of those poems, right? You bring us back to the site of language for how it's happening, which is touch, which is hands, which is, all this. And so that I'm moved by that impulse to say, and I think Leah and Cynthia, you both spoke to this too, but it's almost like in order for me to be me on the page, right, my body must show up, and here's how the language must bend to attend to my presence. I think it's really powerful.
And the line you said about where am I allowed to be a body? I
Yeah.
think that takes time for someone to realize your body is allowed to be in your work. I mean, we're talking about write poetry, we're talking about write about, the past, the future, imagination, and the eye is a mythical eye, but the body is like the last thing to come into it.
Mm.
It seems like more personal, it seems far away, but it really should be the first thing to come into it. You should write what you know your body first, foremost. It takes a while to get there, though.
It does. I remember so to answer my own question for myself, it was Rachel McKibbins who gave me a lot of permission. And it wasn't even about the body, but for me, it was the body had to come along because what Rachel gave me was a permission to tell my own truth. In the work, I'll never. It was at the National Poetry Slam 2010. Not a single interpreter there. And but she gave me this. And I went back, and I always say I went back and wrote my first real poem. And it was to tell my truth. And because my truth at the time was about sex work and about just sort of, the economy that my body allowed me, my body had to show up in that truth. That was a really grateful thing. And right, and like, I don't know, this is not a question, but I think what I'm realizing now is that to tell the truth means that my body has to show up, right? The truth is human, right? Which means that it must be embodied in some way. And I think we're all trying to edge closer to the truth in these poems, right? And so it makes sense. Our bodies must come along with us. The truth cannot be a whisper. It's an action. It's an embodiment.
Yeah. And that makes me think, Dinesh, about, that classic June Jordan chestnut where it's like, what's poetry? Poetry is a means of telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You can spend the rest of your, and it sounds real simple, and it's like, no, it's not. It's really not.
It's levels to that.
Really
it's levels.
not.
It's levels.
It's nice, and I'm like, there's a reason why it's not on a greeting card. It's really hard. And what you just said about like, just like the first real poem you wrote, and your body showing up, and the economics of it. I mean, it made me think about like, one of my maestra teachers, Suhair Hamad, who I always shout out when I saved up all my pennies to go to Bona in 2005. And she cussed me out in the best way because no, in a very loving way, because I'd written one of those, like many people, I'd written my version of Sandra Cisneros, You Bring Out the Mexican in Me, but all of ours were shit mostly, except for balconies, and it was just very like mangoes and revolutionary grandmothers. And she just sat there and she's like, that's a really nice poem. You could win any slam with it. It's not worthy of you. And I was like, and then she was like, where's your actual body? Like, this is all like a mythic diasporic, like, kind of like paint by numbers Sri
The
Lankan.
highlights.
He was like, where's the Sri Lankan that you are, who's mixed race and 8 years old in Worcester, Massachusetts? Where's that body? And I was like, bitch, I don't know. I'm just talking about the mangoes and shit. And she was like, no, you're beautiful, but like you deserve better, and so does your poetry. And then we had a lot of conversations. And I have since, because something that you were both saying about what you said, Cynthia, about the body has to come first. I was like, yeah. And then I was like, it made me think about how so many of us are like gifted kids who got taught to write from up here because our body hooked up. And it made me think about when I started writing, it was a lot of early incest survivor poetry, but my body wasn't really in it. It was just like, I'm disassociated. I'm going to write about violence. And how long it took to actually, I mean, this is a dirty word, but to be able to have the structures that were safe enough to actually feel what the fuck I was feeling and then be able to find words for it, right? Which also, newsflash, doesn't happen in most MFA schools. So there you go.
No. Is the body so personal that it can't be talked about until you're ready? I mean, usually the first poem isn't about the body. It's about, a kite or something, or a girl give something your name, something like that. But when do we get to the point where your whole self, your mental self, your craft self, and your body self is ready for the page? Unfortunately, it's not automatic, right?
Yeah, it's not.
But then also, like, how are you balancing the explanation, the like need to educate, the need to like center oneself, center one's desires, without also having to, do a lot of hand holding, a lot of not over explaining, even just sort of like, could we share a vocabulary? I admire the way that so many of these poems that y'all have shared today don't hiccup over the kind of like, are you sitting down? Because I'm going to introduce you to daylight now, right? You're just like, let's go. It's a lot of trust. And also, I'm curious how it is that y'all negotiate I know that wasn't like in our list of approved questions, but like I'm curious, how is it that you're negotiating like what you have to assume is going to be new, lost, and then also what becomes available in terms of like translation on a like an intuitive level?
Mm. I think I have to trust that I'm gonna lose some readers and but that will make what is for the readers who the work is intended for or who it can reach that much richer, right? I kind of it brings me back, and I think it's a negotiation that I'm only probably just now figuring out in the last couple of years, right? Um, my mind is returning to a conversation I had with the poet Cam Awkward Rich um, that was really changed a lot for me a couple of years ago when he said that so many of like our first collections, especially as poets from marginalized identities, it's understandable that a lot of the time we show up saying, I am here, I am valid, my aliveness matters, you know?
Agree.
And
Yeah.
then but the question, what happens when we move past the argument for your validity or the argument for your aliveness, right? And I think I hear an answer in that in what you're proposing, Meg, because I think that becomes this unwillingness. I think it's about becoming unwilling to negotiate your being, right? Which allows you then to get to the center of your work and really create from the center and not from the periphery going outward, right? But to say, I am going to privilege what is my center and my knowledge and speak from the deepness of that and into that. And I'm inviting you along, right? I'm inviting the rest of you along for the journey, but I'm not going to stand at the edge of myself trying to convince you that the terrain in here is valid. And I think that just comes with experience and time, right? I wish I could just hand that comfort to all my young students, but I know that they have to go on that journey for themselves too. And all I can do is try to think of ways to quicken that journey for them so they can get there faster. But everybody's got to go through it. It's just part of the growing up as a poet, I think, right? And it's just a question of how can I get to that unknowable interiority at the center of me and speak. And if I speak loud enough from there, if I speak so deep into that, it's gonna echo past the perimeters of myself, right? And for the readers who don't understand, there's Google, you know, you know,
Agree.
figure it
I
out.
totally
But
agree.
I'm gonna speak from here. This is where I'm gonna be. I'm ready for you to come join me.
I call my latest book wide leg poems because the
Mm,
poems spread up, out, and around. Like going to a train station, subway, then have the legs spread open. These poems can be open as fuck because I'm writing about all about things, about myself, my body, everything under the sun.
Yeah.
Wide, wide leg poems. And my first book couldn't be that because, like Vanessa says, I was still trying to make sure, hey, Cynthia's here. Cynthia has the craft. I'm valid. Second book, I was like, no, I want to be all the way here, 100% here. My mind and my body, my craft and my heart. And if people can't deal with it, they can hopefully they'll stay.
Uh, I love that. Something I've been thinking a lot lately, as a medium Generation X queer brown poet is just kind of like one of the gifts of actually having a limited audience. Because when I was coming up,
mm,
I mean, I straight up was told when I was shopping around Dirty River, my memoir, queer women of color on a market. And now I'm just like, well, shit, they're fucking winning the National Book Award.
We out
It
here.
was really, yeah, we out here. And also like, but there was no big five. There was no, you know what I mean? Like, and that really sucked. And like, I know many people who stop writing because they're like, well, I can't make a living at this. So I should go be a social worker or do whatever I need to do, or, do both, whatever. But I think there was a real freedom of like, well, if nobody's going to read it, then I don't have to fucking concede anything or translate. And something that I feel worry about, I mean, like I've just seen shit morph so much. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be on a small press or an indie or self-published, but I think that sometimes now the varieties of us and our marginalizations and oppressions are getting sometimes more of an ability to have a more mainstream like audience or whatever, etc. And I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong. I think the fact that, Alice Wong's books are on Vintage is such a win that you can have a disabled literary collection, that's very easy to get. And I also just really worry about the subtle and no, not so subtle creep of like water it down. Like don't be nasty, don't do anything that the real people won't understand. And that sometimes people will say that to us, sometimes they won't even, but it'll get in our heads. You know what I mean? And for me, what I go back to is, I feel like one of my first examples of you could not do this was reading Gloria Anzaldue's Borderlands La Frontera in undergrad. And my teacher, the great, Jackie Alexander, who I was blessed to study with, there were these white girls in class who were like, we don't understand the Spanish. Where's the, and this is before Google, and she was like, no, she did it on purpose. If you were a monolingual Spanish speaker, you wouldn't understand English, would you? You'd have to figure it out from context. This is the point. This is the fucking point. You have to read against it. And I think that there's just a lot of role models out there of like what are like kind of what Dinesh said about like you lose some people, but you also keep some people. I'm like, yeah, what's the gain when not everybody
Mm,
understands stuff? Like I'm
mm,
always trying to stay to I'm writing for disabled cutie BIPOC first, and if anybody else wants to come along, that's great. But you're not doing me a favor,
mm.
right? And I don't give a fuck about you. I mean, I do, but also not really. Um, and so I find that for me, it gets a little bit harder the longer I do it, which is interesting. I think there's something about being younger and fearless and not having a lot to lose. When you have even a tiny bit to lose, there is the seduction of why don't you just, and also like more people know than 25 people know what disability justice is now. So it's just different. The context is different. Anyway, I don't know.
We all have, all of our work has emotions, right?
Mm,
All our work has feeling. So even if they can't get 80%, they got 20%.
Mhm,
And that 20% run with it.
mhm,
Run with it and embrace it till they get 30, and then they get 40, and then they get 60. Those percentages aren't our problem, but it's good that we have them.
mhm.
Yeah.
mm.
I know you guys were writing these really hard poems. How are you guys taking care of yourselves after you write a poem like this? A poem that pulls out of you. How do you take care of yourself afterwards? Do you dance? Do you read romance novel? What's your secret of sort of keeping care of the mind and your body after writing a body poem?
Mm, word. Also, Lee, I just want to say, I think I did respond because I'm like, that's all true. What else to say?
I was like, yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
yep. But no, I think I like the way you framed that question, Cynthia, because I think sometimes I get questions from folks about how to sort of protect yourself in the act of writing. And I think in the act of writing, you kind of do have to leave yourselves to the ravishes of the truth sometimes, right? Which is not always fun. Um, so in the writing itself, sometimes I'm messed up, and crying and
Yeah.
and it's hard. And I'm really grateful for those hard poems. But so I love the idea of like after, right? Because sometimes you just need to be able to go there, right? Sometimes I don't write things because I know I'm not ready to go there. And that is also some, but there's
Get poems. I have poems on a docket. I'm not ready
yeah,
to write that yet. I'm not ready to
yeah,
write that poem
exactly,
yet.
right. It's just like,
It's
ooh,
on a
can you stay over
docket.
there?
I'm
Can you
not
stay a little
ready.
sentence? I'm not ready yet. But but then when I'm ready there, I have to kind of let myself feel like, okay, cool. This might not be the funnest thing, but there's something that's knocking on me, telling me I must go there. After, I'll plan a little date for myself. I'll leave an activity like a walk or like a movie I've been wanting to see, or I'll make myself a good dinner, but just like something that is outside of the language, maybe something where I can actually stay silent because I've just done so much hard work in language. But something where I can just be quiet for a little bit and just enjoy a thing, right? I'm very much, I think the Midwestern suburban mom in me is always invested in getting a little sweet treat, you know. So I'm very down to be like, I just wrote a hard thing. Maybe we should go to that ice cream spot we like, you know. Or even just community as well, right? It's like, oh, I just wrote a hard thing. I know I have a friend that I can call and like we can talk about it. I can read it to her. We can talk about it for like 5-10 minutes, and then our conversation will move somewhere else, right? That sort of, so at that point I'm sort of summoning community to say, please see me as I've done this very hard thing and recognize it, and also help me come out of it a little bit so I can go continue to be a human again. But yeah, just how do you have it's a little sweet reward. It's almost like it's kind of the ways you parent yourself a little bit, right? It's like, if you do this thing you don't like doing, I'll take you to Toys R Us, right? So it's like, if you do this poem that you know is gonna fuck you up, you can have a steak
Afterwards,
tonight. It's
you're
like,
gonna get
okay, I
Haagen-Dazs
can.
afterwards. Yeah. That's who I am. I'm like a Haagen-Dazs. I need to walk. I throw up the bat signal to a friend, or the Gilmore Girls signal to their friend. So about Gilmore Girls. I know there's no black people in it. Let's watch it anyway. I'll do that, or I'll do the little dance. Poem is done. 10-second dance party, and I'll leave my apartment for a bit. Let me just get out of this space. Yeah.
Mhm.
What about you guys, Meg and Leah? How do you take care of yourselves after writing a hard poem?
I could, but Meg, do you want to go?
I want to hear about the cooking.
How many ingredients you're using in these cookies? It's a
Oh, for
5-pot
me?
chili.
Oh,
Yes, it's
oh yeah.
for you, Leah.
I mean, I'm a Taurus and I love a sweet treat as well. And I'm already thinking about the sandwich I'm going to get after this. Not that this is hard, but I really am thinking about the sandwich that's coming. It's going to be delicious. Um, but it's going to be a chicken cutlet, arugula fried, mozzarella fried, eggplant.
You got
Yeah,
specifics. You got
yeah,
specifics.
it's
You
so
got
good. So
specifics. You got specifics. Okay.
I'm a food motivated Taurus, and so is my at. And I would show you a picture, but she's grooming her genitals right now, so we're not going to do that. But sorry.
That should be
But
on
what I was
on a
gonna
birthday
say,
card.
seriously. But what I was gonna say though is like, I mean, I think what comes to mind is like, so, hopefully my fifth book of poetry is gonna be out next year, and I've been working on it since 2019. Yeah, and Dinesh, different specifics, but when I read about your new book that you were like, yeah, it's my first in a minute, I was like, ooh, thank God there's somebody else. Of course, there's somebody else, because I started working on it in early pandemic, and then my sibling comrade Stacey Park Milburn died on May 20th, 2020, and I was in lockdown for a year in Seattle, and all kinds of things happened. Both my parents died, everybody died, just all the things, and it really I mean, I knew this, but I just was like, it's coming out now because I needed 4 years. And it wasn't like the poems were in the drawer the whole time, but I was like, my brother died, on
Mhm.
his 33rd birthday when we
Mhm.
thought we were going to do our disabled QTPOC rom-com for Netflix together. And
Mhm.
who was my North Star, in the light of our world. And for me, it was less of a like, let me get some ice cream, though I did do that, and more of a like, I really need to be like low, slow, turgid. Like it took me a while to read the stuff out loud because it wasn't just my grief. It was like everybody was like completely grief saturated. Like we were like, soil that had been rained on so much. It was like close to flood advisory. Like we couldn't hold anymore, And
Mhm.
so I think for me, some of how I take care of myself has not necessarily felt nice or fun, but it's been like it's okay to give yourself 5 years. And I think that's been tricky for me because some of the tradition I come out with is something bad happens, you write a poem, and I have a lot of comrades and peers and mentors who have also pushed back against that because they're like, actually, it's real burnout to be like, oh, Katrina happened, write a poem. This happened, write a poem. It's like that's not sustainable. And it kind of makes us the short order cooks of like poetic trauma response. And like that's not the only way we should be or can be allowed to be as activist poets, like
Mhm.
we need to, and that's the way I took care of my heart was I was like, oh, I feel like my grief, for through a lot of things, but including through the last 4 years of individual and collective grief knowledge, I'm like, now I'm in a place where I can release these well and they're going to be received well, but I needed to give myself that time.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one thing I would say.
I really appreciate that. I think like temporality is like a creative constraint, a consensual one, an unconsensual one is a thing I've been contending with. It turns out I don't, for me, feel that like books are a priority.
Hmm.
Like, took me a long time to be okay with, because everybody wants a book, or they want to know where the book is, or they want to know why it's been so long. And so every time I write a poem or I finish a poem, I'm conscious of the fact that there's somebody in the ceiling, as we say in ASL. There's somebody in the ceiling who's like, one step closer. Are you there yet? Is it done? And I just kind of like ignore that shit. I'm a big crier. I'm a Pisces. I like a good walk. I like a good drive. I like a good cry. But to be quite frank, I think more often than not, I'm thinking about like, okay, I did the thing for me. What's the thing that I'm going to do that builds on or commits to the thing that I'm actually concerned about, which is like poet as public servant, poet in the role of public service work in general, all kinds. I think that's hot. I think it's necessary. I think it's maybe not undervalued in any recognizable way, but we don't hold it up. And so it's helpful to me to like invest in it on purpose. And sometimes that involves, like more traditional modes of like teaching or like meeting with people and talking about their work. But sometimes it's just like, making sure that I don't fall into the same, like acculturated trap of English supremacy of my first book, where I have to go like read some texts, unteach myself things.
Yeah.
Feel good about the decisions I'm making in my work, so I don't find myself, making poems that I'm gonna have to like undo in another 10 years.
Yeah.
And then also, managing to maintain with grace and forbearance and deep joy the relationships that help us persist. I mean, praise be for y'all.
I know we got to wrap, but if I may say two quick things. One thing I want to say that for me, it wasn't just lying down still, though it was. But I also just want to say, like, shout outs to like the need for poetic community. And that's one, and the shout out I want to give is to the need for COVID safer and accessible poetic community, because honestly, it really, I mean, I did a lot of disabled Zoom poetry things, and it was good. And it's only been this year that I've been able to be back in person in a safe and accessible way, very briefly with other poets. And I was like, oh yeah, I really need this, or else I'm just going to turn into a short order cook slash service top slash husk of myself. And I will say, especially as the person I am, I got asked to do a lot of like, tell us how to do disability justice 101 shit. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that to a point, but I'm actually a poet. Like, I'm a poet and I need other poets to be weird with as the way through it. Like, that's also the cookie, is being able to be with y'all. Yeah,
Y'all the cookie.
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 I want to be a cookie. I love being a cookie.
Chocolate
Okay.
chip,
Definitely a
chocolate
cookie.
Anything
chip,
else?
some
Come on.
M&Ms, yes, in the cookie.
Thank
Isabella's
you so
back.
much. I'm so moved. This was such a beautiful conversation and reading. I'm especially Karen, I had to write this down, but Meg sharing, I'm still trying to figure out what rooms I'm allowed to be a body in. Just carrying that with me after this conversation, it's been tremendous. And thank you all for being with us as part of the Dodge Poetry Festival 2024.
Yeah.
Welcome to the 2024 Dodge Poetry Festival's virtual session, The Body, a Praise Song. I'm Isabel Gonzalez, Senior Consultant with Poetry at NJPAC, and I'm thrilled to be joined by festival poets Meg Day, Cynthia Manick, Leah Lakshmi Piepshna Shamar Singha, and Denez Smith. We're also joined by our ASL interpreter, Emily Phipps. In this session, we invite you, dear listeners, to celebrate with us all the ways our bodies are both strong and vulnerable. This reading and conversation is an opportunity to praise our bodies, their functionalities and frailties, and acknowledge all the ways in which we are connected despite the differences in our bodies. Let us witness the intersections of the body and the spirit. Our brilliant poets today will read for 10 minutes, and then we'll create space for a conversation led by our poets. Meg, Cynthia, Leah, and Danez, I look forward to the curiosities you will offer each other, and I'm excited to hear each of your praise songs.
Thank you. This is Meg Day speaking. My pronouns are they, them. I am a white transmasculine kid with hearing aids, wearing a denim shirt in front of a white wall. I'm joining you virtually from Durham, North Carolina, which is on the unceded land of Saponi people. I'm going to read 4 poems that center my own experience of moving inside of the ableism and autism of contemporary American poetics, which assumes always that the reader is hearing and traditionally refuses anything but a phonocentric or audiocentric understanding of poetics and what it means maybe to have lyricism or musicality. These poems tend topics of deaf gain, of moving between hearing and deaf worlds, of the way that harm is carried from our larger lives into our private and more intimate ones, and also aims to reimagine, I hope, as a kind of offering of grace, histories that maybe haven't been so kind. This poem's called 10 a.m. is when you come to me. In some other life, I can hear you breathing, a pale sound like running fingers through tangled hair. I dreamt again of swimming in the quarry and surfaced here when you called for me in a voice only my sleeping self could know. Now the dapple of the aspen respires on the wool and the shades cut its song a staff of light. Leave me, that me, in bed with a woman who said all the sounds for pleasure were made with vowels I couldn't hear. Keep me instead with this small sun that sips at the sky blue hem of our sheets, then dips and reappears. A drowsy penny in the belt of Venus, your aureole nodding slow and copper as it bobs against cotton in cornflower or clay. What a waste the groan of the mattress must be. When you backstroke into me and pull the night up over our heads, your eyes are 2 moons I float beneath. And my lungs fill with a wet hum, your hips return. It's Sunday. Or so you say, with both hands on my chest. And hot breath is the only hymn whose refrain we can recall. And then you reach for me like I could have been another man. You make me sing without a sound. I want you to understand what your sound does to me. So I take you to the field and scream. I scream the rooting pig from its soft earth, nose covered in dirt. I scream the shade from the grazing horse among the trees. I scream the dead rabbit out its resting place, and I scream the vulture back from the sky. When it lands, I scream the grass quiet. Every blade. Each deep burrow evacuates its snakes and beetles, its litters of kits. I scream my incision sites blurry with reverb. I shake with it, until you become too many for me to field alone. And then I scream harder until you are one again and smaller, single and still. I scream the ground wet beneath us. My scream pulls the squirrel from its branch and the raccoon from its upright hollow, and the stray pricks its ears but keeps moving. I scream until I have a tail. I scream my own tail curled, scream so heavy it shifts the block on my chest a full inch, scraping, leaving marks. I scream the kindness from your face. It slides slowly to the left and goes all the way around before returning to my scream, still hung there in the air like a smell between us, like a sour, outdated name, like a yellow jacket you anger by trying to wave away. This third poem takes its title. It's called Reasonable Accommodation. And it takes its title from the 1990 legislation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires access and accommodation be provided only when it is reasonable. You've met me halfway between the door to our bedroom and the other I doubt is real only because you are always gesturing, there it is, as if getting to an exit is as simple as its existence, as if your body, real or imagined, does not make a door a taunt you can point to but not touch. You touch me like I'm a door that won't open. The first fight ended here too. My back to the wall and your body keeping it there. Every hand and mouth an act of contrition in an argument I was sure I'd misheard until you were kneeling to beg me, stay. Only then did I understand yours was a language of secret orders and mine a language of hidden sounds you thought you had to teach me yourself. Tonight, my shoulders relax into the dimples they make in the drywall, the pair of them joining the others in repetition down the hallway, a stampede through snow. Look at the tracks they've left, all the animals my body didn't mean to be. Tonight, there is no feast. Tonight, you are only sorry God's name is the one I choose to say aloud when you touch me like you believe you could put a door anywhere if you just push hard enough. Like if I wasn't so unreasonable, I could just accommodate myself. Like if it's so hard, why don't you just leave? There it is. There I am, opening a door in a wall with a body I should want to exit. You touch me like I'm an animal that needs correcting. You touch me like it's for my own good. And wasn't this my request? Didn't I ask you to speak to me only with your hands? This last poem I'm going to read came out of one of my favorite poems, The Oriole by Nikki Finney. And I'm grateful to lineages, to texts that lead us, to elders and ancestors that make way, even as they are not as present as we'd like, and even as they are not living alongside us. So with gratitude, this poem's called It Must Still Be Summer. It must still be summer because the tent goes up easy in the bluegrass and we loiter past sundown without sleeves. The sunset, one thing we can watch that won't require captioning and isn't each other. What did you say then? Hand cupped to my ear as if it would send more than winter across my arm. What did I believe I knew of language in that moment before everything about me became true? I followed you into the dark like a vowel, a train disappearing into a tunnel at the end of a light. It's night in the tent. And my eyes can't help but deny my ears, so it's my hands that go dowsing for sound. The push broom sweep of our sleeping bags and the hourglass sand of their slow unzip. I catch your lip in the gold leaf glare of your neighbor's third shift headlights, wet road rumble in my hips and yellow cymbal flashbang through your hair. I don't care how it happened, only that it did. 1 minute, an eternity with you tracing the bones in my face with your read-along finger, mouthing me out. Quiet, common mispronunciation I still let slide between my thighs at the right octave. Another, and you are all wicker, flank, soft muzzle in my palm. What makes a woman who is barely a woman move like this? What secret grammar do you know? I feed apple fingers past eager lips smacking on 13 plus 1, the heat of you sucking at the M of my name sign, my Girl Scout promise. What part of your body isn't saying my name? Say it again. Say it louder. This is the last night of my life when hands remain only one kind of mouth. Whose tongue is this, and where did you learn it? What made you invent a new chord, then made me play it like a siren for a 3-alarm fire, summon new gods with their good names hot at the reed of my jaw like some kind of symphony, disarmed of melody? All these questions, and the answer right there at the end of my arm. Thank you.
Oh, my name is Cynthia Manick. My pronouns are she, her. I'm coming virtually from Tuscany, Italy, and I am a brown woman with black glasses and blue hair. I'm going to read 4 poems for you today. There'll be poems about lineage of the body, living in a Black female body that is large, living in a big body that is sometimes other, but also a praise of the body within the universe. The first poem is called, Is This Your Sky or Mine? And I think it talks about when you realize you're a parent with someone before they were a parent. Is this your sky or mine? I try to quantify what we inherit. Dancers' legs that know how to roam, but be church pious by morning. The ability to fold shirts into a perfect square, or the street walk that says, I am a willing dove, but need no man or pierced jewelry. I've learned that when the grease bubbles, you put the fish in. Nail polish will stop a run in any stocking. Did you mean to build something that lasts? I want to give you a cinematic backstory, far from Southern charms and swamp boys, but I can't picture your shift from girl to woman, mine but not, strong but not. You tuck the girdle in so the belly doesn't roll, curl the feet like commas. The body just births more questions, and that's my future. I've always been quietly wild, and I'm sorry for talking too fast, too much, but I'm trying to catch all the anchored parts of you. Rough magic, farm tales of double-yolked eggs, a collage of memories trapped in photo albums because you rarely cover old ground. I think every poem I write is about you, Mama. This next poem is dedicated to those who get catcalls. Now, some catcalls are okay. Hey, miss, how you doing? Other catcalls go too far. This poem is called, Baby, what's your favorite body part? Baby, what's your favorite body part? A blue-collar man asked, with his mouth shaped like a preacher's, gaze the size of wishes, and part of my rib cuts open. Something heavier than a sequoia tree settles in its place. Gone is the practiced Josephine Baker head tilt. My imagined swagger of a bolero singer or flamenco star. I hear damn like a buttered biscuit. I wish you greased mine. Who knows how not to blossom? Be wild aim lightning to a sweaty wrist. Kick like a dark flank, the family friend who hugs you just a little too. Those who say mine when you are silent. I want these dancers' legs pulled from a womb to know when to speak. Run, be cocoa butter shine and woman. I wish those meant a hex they can't breathe out. Adrenaline like arsenic, loose stool, a wraith of mothers named Caroline and Mary, a pot of sisters called Princess and Maya, following them whenever it's dark. This next poem is for those who've been to the gynecologist. It's called Dear Future Body, Keep Your Skin Thick. Yesterday, my legs were propped in stirrups, as the gyno said. You should go on The Biggest Loser. I heard cities at the skull base, stuttering over each other, vying in vows of your roles and the garden under your chin. The implied real estate of, don't you want to be beautiful? We have known the trap of nameless and hungry BMI indexes. Dear God, in sample size fashion, I escape and get caught in the same geography again and again, unmade and remade. I forget I am more than a house of great bones, of Vaseline and Werther's Originals. The cacophony of a well-meaning, she has such a pretty face. I'm writing to tell you about a type of war. People carving the cavalry horses to survive, the outline of social media models, and how many calories is this bottle of air? What else can we eliminate? I always thought the planet Pluto was a black girl, now downgraded and mostly out. Dear future body, take a break today. Tell me, how are your kisses? Sometimes they give birth to promises, a season in the word, oil and oxygen at the ready. Are you someone's night bloom? Remember to trace what remains, the prayers your mouth learns. I want us living, not just alive. This next poem, I was actually asked to write a poem about love. And I feel like when writing a poem about love, but love of place and love of existence. This poem is called There Are No Unsacred Spaces. I'm trying to tell you that the world is beautiful. All the hellos we say in a week or month, the way the grooves of the grin know what to do. Think about the first time man went from 4 legs, hairy knuckles folded over, to 2. The moment in the spine realized it could brace against its cage, that the bones wouldn't splinter or spark. The sound that escaped. From that height, where did the eyes look first? I bet he wondered about who feeds the sun, who can stand next to him. I'm trying to tell you something about the universe. You connect each lake and ocean with a pencil. They mirror constellations. The barking stars are like dimes. They know about the tenderness of orcas, as if their sides were made to contain opposites, like we contain opposites. They know that the surf never takes everything. A body always documents where it's been, down to the horseshoe crab. I'm trying to tell you that it's okay to curse God a little. That your mother keeps giving you plants that you overwater or underwhelmed, to cast burden over joy, piss over water, 'cause hurt can get so loud sometimes. I'm trying to tell you that history doesn't begin with language, with words on top of words. It begins with skin and wonder and touch, like that dating app with welders and endangered blacksmiths. They enter every unlit space with their craggy nicked hands, then curve the letter A from the shape of an ox. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Leah Lakshmi Piepshnasamarsingha. I use they and she pronouns. I am a non-binary femme person of Sri Lankan and white ascent who has freshly dyed teal curly hair that matches the walls of my living room and bright pink lips that match my pink velvet couch in the background. And I'm zooming into you from West Philly, Lenape territory. These are 4 poems. They're all about the disabled, queer, brown, working class, visceral at the end of the world. This first one is called XOXO, Your Messy, Nasty Crip House. My garbage can's stuffed full with bloody pads. There's a double half-moon shaped ass smear of blood crocus on the toilet seat. The tub needs a scrub. There's a cat tree I've needed someone to come pick up for 2 weeks now, riding shotgun in my hallway. No one is coming. There's rubble on the floor. Yes, rubble. Used napkins crumpled everywhere. Yes, the recycling is full again. What a scandal. It looks like a crazy person lives here. Survey says they do. Also a sick person. You know that cycle when your house is gross and you need help, but you won't let anyone over your house because it's gross? That one. Maybe I'll be on the news. I'm seeing spots in front of my eyes from blood loss, so yay, that means I can't see all the way to what a shame my house is. I don't seem like an adult. That's fine. I'm a crippled adult, maybe slowly bleeding to death because the next. I'm a crippled adult, maybe slowly bleeding to death because the next new patient opening is in June, and the hospitals are stuffed full of dying people in hallways as bombs rain down on the rest of the world, paid in full. This is me saying, wherever you are feeling like an embarrassed loser, I love you in your dirty ass house. Even if we die alone here, we are not the shame. This next one is called I Want to Kill the Whole Entire Medical Industrial Complex for You. I want to kill the whole ass medical industrial complex for you. I want to kill every fucker who killed Carrie Ann and Jerica and Heather and people I don't know and now won't because ableism killed them, who might, ETA did, kill you because you are a fat Asian femme with a vent in her throat who needed a damn cancer surgery. I won't forget how long they left you in the hallway after that CAT scan. No vent, no pain meds, hallway. I want to kill every motherfucker who's ever said to me, oh, I don't think we really need to do a biopsy. Oh, I don't think you really need that medication. Oh, I didn't think to check the lymph nodes. I want to kill every one of those bastards who kill us with pats on the head, 4-hour hold times, and indifference. I want to kill every motherfucker who told me to trust them, who asked if maybe I was just a little depressed, who refused to give me the imaging a few of the million times I asked. I want to murder the ones who told me they really didn't care if I understood what was happening, just if they could charge me for it. I want to commit mass murder, which will just start to make up for every time they said your life was worth less than the $1,000 the antibiotic you knew you needed cost. Go ahead, call me another autistic mass shooter risk. I don't care. No made-up murder I write about in a poem can make you be alive again. Thank you. That poem was censored by a university because they were like, they will call the cops on you and they will call you an autistic mass shooter risk. This is the purpose of poetry. This next one is called I Know Crips Live Here, and it's CRIP, short for cripple, the reclaimed disabled way. I know Crips live here. So many couches and blanket throws. I know Crips live here, a bathroom filled with coconut oil, unscented conditioner, and black soap. I know Crips live here, your Hermira and tea on the bottom shelf of the fridge in prime position. I know Crips live here, only house on the block with a homemade ramp, property standards stay so mad about it. I know Crips live here. Big exhale at the shower chair, the slip pads, and the air purifier. I know Crips live here. I see all the things in reach around your mattress of glory. I know Crips live here. Straws and poise pans and crosswords and weighted blankets and stim toys. I know Crips live here. You've been home for a couple days, a week. That's the imprint of your ass in the couch, surrounded by empty bags of food and the Advil in the heating pad. I know Crips live here. 50-pound bag of Epsom salts from the farm store, your painkiller display like an altar. I know Crips live here. I see your EBT card and your FOT4 DSHS care attendant. I know Crips live here. Taught yourself to be an herbalist so you could afford to manage your pain. I know Crips live here. Everybody late. I know Crips live here. Your dogs, cats, and stuffed animals are part of your family. I know Crips live here. Your disabled parking placard, a candle in the window to guide me. I know Crips live here. Welcome. You are home. And this last one is about the mass disabling event of the genocide against Reza. And it's called Thursday, November 23rd, 2023. In the thick dust of death in a dry mouth. In 78 ton of buried bone. In a curl of children in one incubator, eyes naked, accusing, and alive. In the angel gay face starting the morning Instagram, hello, I am still alive again. In the stranger friends on Jitsi blotting arrest cheerful. In the friend who can't look at the supermarket meat anymore because it reminds them of body parts once child held by father. In the place where all the bullshit falls away, calls, what will you do? What will you do? Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for those poems. Thank you for bringing Gaza into the room. Free Palestine always. Always until we don't got to say it no more. Thank you, Leah, Cynthia, Meg, for all those incredible poems. Oh my God. So, and I'm in live. Y'all are people whose work I love, but to be in this room feels like a blessing. Hello, everyone. My name is Dinez Smith. I am a Black, dark-skinned, non-binary person. I look very masculine today. I use they, them pronouns. I'm wearing an orange shirt, gold hoop earrings. Behind me is my office, which has white walls, a TV, a bookshelf, and up top, a crucifix made of toilet paper that has been glittered and glued. I am coming to you today from Minneapolis, which is on unceded Dakota and Ojibwe land. And yeah, I am also very upset that I have to go last because all those poems are incredible. I think the first two poems today I'm going to read are about our bodies in relation to each other. I think particularly about the mother body as it relates to queerness and gender. This first poem is called Colorado Springs. She's crying for all of us, her brother, son, me, everyone, someone's boy. Before the wedding, henny wrecked, loved whelmed, meaning well, so much, she says, Black boys go through these days, gay, transgender, gang banging. I know what she means. I try to not be criminalized. I know she doesn't see us as crimes, maybe sins, but sense to her. Since I know my own mother, I know she means the bodies she didn't think, or the bodies we didn't think our sons would lay down. The men we never imagined would seek our sons in the night. Our boys, dressed in those colors, monochrome and prism strained, flagging what we hoped wouldn't find them. I know. When I pressed my purple stone to my mother's breast, what flooded her wasn't disgust, but sickness. Knowing what violences might rush her once blue babe, now cut to pink meat, red as honesty, those blood-ill premonitions, love, their own bodies, other boys. All mothers know anything can hunt a son, a fear so animal language cannot tame nor reason. Later, before the wedding, in the woods at the mountain's feet, love points out a mushroom that looks like a coin. It do. Earthy currency, a metal soft and chewable, fragile platinum. Even if I was Mother Earth, I couldn't expect this wild change, fleshy and star bright steel bloom. I wouldn't know it grew like this too. Dirt rising into armor. She didn't know we grow up fine. My mother loves her purple child deeper and truer, even though what she feared would scar me left its mark. I know she meant well. I know love shoots beyond language and sense. Mothers, if we make it through it all. Love, find our sons. Body, hold our babies well. Free them from all cages, even if it's what we named them. Violence, don't lust after our boys and call it kin. If you must find our babies in the midst of their lives, leave a wound we can dress. And may we not be the scars they stitch lonely in the mother gone dark. All right. So now I'm gonna read a couple. That was from my most recent collection that just came out. These two are from my previous one. This one again, thinking about the body and lineage, right? The gendered body, the trans body, the bodies that maybe we call for in the future that we await for. This also made for a lot of awkward Christmases and Thanksgivings for a little bit. But I think the important thing, as I told my family, is that because the title is Waiting on You to Die so I can be myself. And I had to tell them, I don't want you to die. I want something in you to die so that we may actually live and love together. Waiting on you to die so I can be myself. 1,000 years of daughters. Then me. What else could I have learned to be? Girl after giving herself to herself, one long ring shout name, a monarchy of copper and cold shoulders. The body, too, is a garment. I learned this best from the snake undulating out of her pork rind dress. I crawl out of myself into myself, take refuge where I flee. Once I snatched out my heart like a track and found not a heart, but two girls forever playing slide on the porch in my chest. Who knows how they keep time? They could be a single girl, doubled and joined at the hands. I'm stalling. I want to say something without saying it, but there's no time. I'm waiting for a few folks I love dearly to die so I can be myself. Please don't make me say who. The garments I'd buy if my baby wasn't alive, if they woke up at their wake, they might not recognize that woman in the front making all that noise. Cool. Cool. All right. Last poem. And after this one, we will come back on screen and we'll have a little discussion for a little bit for you all. a discussion for the future, because y'all ain't gonna see this today. This last poem is called Undetectable. In 2014, I was diagnosed with HIV. And thanks to the grace of modern medicine, although not the grace of modern medicine, like shout out to Gilead, who makes all the HIV antivirals. I really related to Leah saying, I want to kill the whole medical industrial complex for you. I want to murder them. So much. But but they tell you the thing that you want to be with the current drugs is to become undetectable, which means that the virus, the viral load in your blood and in your fluids is so low that it cannot come up on a test, and you can't transfer it to any partner that you have. So this is called Undetectable. Soundless, it crosses a line, quiets into a seed, and then whatever makes a seed, almost like gone, but not gone. The air kept its shape, not antimatter, but the memory of matter, or of it mattering. It doesn't cross my mind now that it's a whisper so soft it's almost silence, but it's not. Someone dragged the screaming boy so deep into the woods, he sounds like the trees now. Gone enough, almost never here. Daily, swallowed within a certain window, a pale green trail on the tongue the pale green pill makes before it's divvied amongst the ghettos of blood, dissolves and absolves my scarlet brand, ritual and proof. Surely science and witchcraft have the same face. My mother praises God for this, and surely it is his face too. Regimen, you are my miracle. This swallowing, my muscular colt. I'm not faithful to much. I'm less a genius of worship than I let on, but the pill, emerald dialect, singing the malady away. Not away. Far enough. For now. I am the most important species in my body. But one dead boy makes the whole forest a grave. And he's in me, in there, in the middle of all that green. You probably thought he was fruit. Cool. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna invite my other panelists to come back onto the video screen, the video stage. Thank you all so much for those fantastic readings. I think we made a little bit of magic happen today between us. And I'll start us off with a question. I want to know, have you always been comfortable letting your body be seen in poems? And if not, what changed? What gave you permission to or demanded that you show up embodied in the work?
For me, I was always about craft and writing about writing about what's outside of myself, writing about family, writing about lore, writing about the past. It was never me to my second book. I was like, you know what? This book is gonna be more me than any book that I've ever written before. And so now I feel like I'm more me, and my poems are more me, and that includes the body.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Leah. I don't know if you saw me, but when you asked that question today, I was like now my sound was off. Is making me think of something that she probably doesn't remember, but Tara Betts said to me years ago, because we both came to the slam and we were both, it was like it might have been like 2004, something like that. And we were like, what's happening with slam? And she was like, she says, I'm like, there's poems I want to write that I don't want to read at a slam because when you read at a slam, you want people to go, yeah. And these are poems that are going to make people go, hmm. And
Mm,
for me, until I found the disability justice movement, I had two books out and I was not writing about chronic illness or disability despite getting sick when I was 21 and I'm 49 now. Shout out some moisturizer and a tiny bit of melanin. But because I just was like, but it's not that my body wasn't there because I
mm,
needed to be, even if I didn't believe in being a disabled exception, I was young and sick and I needed to be on the stage and get a 10. So my disabled body was still there. I just wasn't writing about it in that way. And then I found Sins Invalid, which was a crew of, led by and founded by two Black disabled queerdos who were writing Black and Indigenous and Brown disabled queer bodies. And I just sat
mm,
there with my mouth open, being like, I didn't know you could do that on television.
mm,
And I'll just say that, and I mean, it is that chicken or the egg thing of like, you can always write stuff before there's a space for it. But if you don't know if you don't know there's going to be an audience who can receive it or mentors who can push you and give you possibility model for, sorry, I'm being autistic lawn, but I'll make this brief. Um, when I first performed at Sins in 2009, one of my long-term collaborators was like, I've never seen you be so present on stage. And I was like, yeah,
mm,
we had an access check-in and there was food and it wasn't up 3 flights of stairs at the queer bar. So I could show up with my disabled body. And
mm,
I was coming out of a much more working class brown spoken word tradition where you just show up and do it, which is beautiful. And also I had to closet my disability. So of course I wasn't going to make it in the poems.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, or there's no interpreter. Like, how many slams have you been to with an interpreter, right? Like, there's something really, really, like, what a gift, spoken word, and like the slam culture of like embodiment. And there you are, and the stage is accessible or it's not. Um,
Mm,
I the thing for me has been like trying to push aside sort of like the colonial urges of English on the
mm,
page. And like, how do you put a deaf body on the page? Like, I'm still pissed about it. I haven't figured it out. Like, we're working with like ASL glasses and we're trying to put like, screenshots of ASL dictionaries into our
mm,
work, and it's getting called experimental, which like maybe it is. And also, come on.
mm,
So I'm still trying to figure out like what rooms I'm allowed to be a body in.
mm,
And I don't think that's new, but it's strange to like work with folks in print culture or like digital culture in text, and have a lot of resistance to like the image.
mm,
Um, like that's what I have.
mm.
So
I feel so much power in what you just said. Like, who is it experimental for, right? This is not experimental. This is my language, right? Um, and I think it's coming back to at a recent conference, we were thinking about like even that term, the avant-garde, right? Which it might be useful for some folks, right? But for some, it might be this is the only way I can create. And so even though it might be outside of status quo or expectation for you, this is the language, the image I have for Reach For. Meg, I was so moved today by the ends of your poems, how you always bring us back to the hands in a couple of those poems, right? You bring us back to the site of language for how it's happening, which is touch, which is hands, which is, all this. And so that I'm moved by that impulse to say, I think Leah and Cynthia, you both spoke to this too, but it's almost like in order for me to be me on the page, right, my body must show up. And here's how the language must bend to attend to my presence. I think it's really powerful.
And the line you said about where am I allowed to be a body? I
Yeah.
think that takes time for someone to realize your body is allowed to be in your work. I mean, we're talking about write poetry, we're talking about write about, the past, the future, imagination, and the eye is a mythical eye, but the body is like the last thing to come into it.
Mm,
It seems a lot more personal, it seems far away, but it really should be the first thing to come into it. You should write what you know your body first, foremost. It takes a while to get there, though.
It does. I remember so to answer my own question for myself, it was Rachel McKibbins who gave me a lot of permission. And it wasn't even about the body, but for me, it was the body had to come along because what Rachel gave me was a permission to tell my own truth. In the work, I'll never. It was at the National Poetry Slam 2010. Not a single interpreter there. And but she gave me this. And I went back, and I always say I went back and wrote my first real poem. And it was to tell my truth. And because my truth at the time was about sex work and about just sort of, the economy that my body allowed me, my body had to show up in that truth. That was a really grateful thing. And right, and like, I don't know, this is not a question, but I think what I'm realizing now is that to tell the truth means that my body has to show up, right? Truth is human, right? Which means that it must be embodied in some way. And I think we're all trying to edge closer to the truth in these poems, right? And so it makes sense. Our bodies must come along with us. The truth cannot be a whisper. It's an action. It's an embodiment.
Yeah. And that makes me think, Dinesh, about, that classic June Jordan chestnut where it's like, what's poetry? Poetry is a means of telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You can spend the rest of your, and it sounds real simple, and it's like, no, it's not. It's really not.
It's levels to that.
Really
It's levels. It's
It's
levels.
like, yeah. It's just that's nice, and I'm like, there's a reason why it's not on the greeting card. It's really hard. And what you just said about like, yeah, just like the first real poem you wrote, and your body showing up, and the economics of it. I mean, it made me think about like, one of my maestro teachers, Suhair Hamad, who I always shout out when I saved up all my pennies to go to Bona in 2005. And she cussed me out in the best way because no, in a very loving way, because I'd written one of those, like many people, I'd written my version of San Francisco's You Bring Out the Mexican Me, but all of ours were shit mostly, except for balconies, and it was just very like mangoes and revolutionary grandmothers. And she just sat there and she's like, that's a really nice poem. You could win any slam with it. It's not worthy of you. And I was like, and then she was like, where's your actual body? Like, this is all like a mythic diasporic, like, kind of like paint by numbers, Sri
The
Lankan.
highlights.
He was like, where's the Sri Lankan that you are who's mixed race and 8 years old in Worcester, Massachusetts? Where's that body? And I was like, bitch, I don't know. I'm just writing about the mangoes and shit. And she was like, no, you're beautiful, but like you deserve better, and so does your poetry. And then we had a lot of conversations. And I have since, because something that you were both saying about what you said, Cynthia, about the body has to come first. I was like, yeah. And then I was like, it made me think about how so many of us are like gifted kids who got taught to write from up here because our body hooked up. And it made me think about when I started writing, it was a lot of early incest survivor poetry, but my body wasn't really in it. It was just like, I'm disassociated. I'm going to write about violence. And how long it took to actually, I mean, this is a dirty word, but to be able to have the structures that were safe enough to actually feel what the fuck I was feeling and then be able to find words for it, right? Which also, newsflash, doesn't happen in most MFA schools. So there you go.
No. Is the body so personal that it can't be talked about until you're ready? I mean, usually the first poem isn't about the body. It's about, a kite or something, or a girl give some to your name, something like that. But when do we get to the point where your whole self, your mental self, your craft self, and your body self is ready for the page? Unfortunately, it's not automatic, right?
Yeah, it's not.
But then also, like, how are you balancing the explanation, the like need to educate, the need to like center oneself, center one's desires, without also having to, do a lot of hand holding, a lot of not over explaining, even just sort of like, could we share a vocabulary? I admire the way that so many of these poems that y'all have shared today don't hiccup over the kind of like, are you sitting down? Because I'm going to introduce you to daylight now, right? You're just like, let's go. It's a lot of trust. And also, I'm curious how it is that y'all negotiate. I know it wasn't like in our list of approved questions, but like, I'm curious, how is it that you're negotiating? Like, what you have to assume is going to be new lost, and then also what becomes available in terms of like translation on a like an intuitive level.
Mm. I think I have to trust that I'm gonna lose some readers and but that will make what is for the readers who the work is intended for or who it can reach that much richer, right? I kind of, it brings me back, and I think it's a negotiation that I'm only probably just now figuring out in the last couple of years, right? My mind is returning to a conversation I had with the poet Cam Awkward Rich, um, that was really changed a lot for me a couple years ago when he said that so many of like our first collections, especially as poets from marginalized identities, it's understandable that a lot of the time we show up saying, I am here, I am valid, my aliveness matters, you know?
Agree. Yeah.
And then but the question, what happens when we move past the argument for your validity or the argument for your aliveness, right? And I think I hear an answer in that, in what you're proposing, Meg, because I think that becomes this unwillingness. I think it's about becoming unwilling to negotiate your being, right? Which allows you then to get to the center of your work and really create from the center and not from the periphery going outward, right? But to say, I am going to privilege what is my center and my knowledge and speak from the deepness of that and into that. And I'm inviting you along, right? I'm inviting the rest of you along for the journey, but I'm not going to stand at the edge of myself trying to convince you that the terrain in here is valid. And I think that just comes with experience and time, right? I wish I could just hand that comfort to all my young students, but I know that they have to go on that journey for themselves too. And all I can do is try to think of ways to quicken that journey for them so they can get there faster. But everybody's got to go through it. It's just part of the growing up as a poet, I think, right? And it's just a question of how can I get to that unknowable interiority at the center of me and speak. And if I speak loud enough from there, if I speak so deep into that, it's gonna echo past the perimeters of myself, right? And for the readers who don't understand, there's Google, you know, you know,
I agree.
figure it
I
out.
totally
But
agree.
I'm gonna speak from here. This is where I'm gonna be. I'm ready for you to come join me.
I call my latest book wide leg poems because the poems spread up, out and around. Like, going to a train station, subway, then how the legs spread open. These poems can be open as fuck. Because I'm writing all about things, about myself, my body, everything under the sun.
Yeah.
Wide, wide leg poems. And my first book couldn't be that. Because like Dana says, I was still trying to make sure, hey, Cynthia's here. Cynthia has the craft. I'm valid. Second book, I was like, no, I want to be all the way here, 100% here. My mind and my body, my craft and my heart. And if people can't deal with it, they can go. Hopefully they'll stay.
I love that. Something I've been thinking a lot lately, as a medium Generation X queer brown poet, is just kind of like one of the gifts of actually having a limited audience. Because when I was coming up, I straight up was told when I was shopping around Dirty River, my memoir, queer women of color on a market. And now I'm just like, well, shit, they're fucking winning the National Book Award.
We out here.
It's really, yeah, we out here. And also like, but there was no big five. There was no, you know what I mean? Like, and that really sucked. And like, I know many people who stop writing because they're like, well, I can't make a living at this, so I should go be a social worker or do whatever I need to do, or, do both, whatever. But I think there was a real freedom of like, well, if nobody's going to read it, then I don't have to fucking concede anything or translate. And something that I feel worry about, I mean, like, I've just seen shit morph so much. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be on a small press or an indie or self-published, but I think that sometimes now the varieties of us and our marginalizations and oppressions are getting sometimes more of an ability to have a more mainstream like audience or whatever, et cetera. And I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong. I think the fact that, Alice Wong's books are on Vintage is such a win, that you can have a disabled literary collection, that's very easy to get. And I also just really worry about the subtle and no, not so subtle creep of like water it down. Like don't be nasty. Don't do anything that the real people won't understand. You know, and that sometimes people will say that to us, sometimes they won't even, but it'll get in our heads. You know what I mean? And for me, what I go back to is, I feel like one of my first examples of you could not do this was reading Gloria Anzaldue's Borderlands La Frontera in undergrad. And my teacher, the great, Jackie Alexander, who I was blessed to study with, there were these white girls in class who were like, we don't understand the Spanish. Where's the, and this is before Google, and she was like, no, she did it on purpose. If you were a monolingual Spanish speaker, you wouldn't understand English, would you? You'd have to figure it out from context. This is the point. This is the fucking point. You have to read against it. And I think that there's just a lot of role models out there of like what are like kind of what Dinesh said about like you lose some people, but you also keep some people. I'm like, yeah, what's the gain when not everybody
Mm,
understands stuff? Like I'm
mm,
always trying to stay to I'm writing for disabled cutie BIPOC first, and if anybody else wants to come along, that's great. But you're not doing me a favor,
mm.
right? And I don't give a fuck about you. I mean, I do, but also not really. Um, and so I find that for me, it gets a little bit harder the longer I do it, which is interesting. I think there's something about being younger and fearless and not having a lot to lose. When you have even a tiny bit to lose, there is the seduction of why don't you just, and also like more people know than 25 people know what disability justice is now. So it's just different. The context is different. Anyway, I don't know.
We all of our work has emotions, right?
Mm,
All our work has feeling. So even if they can't get 80%, they got 20%.
Mhm,
And that 20% run with it.
mhm,
Run with it and embrace it till they get 30, and then they get 40, and then they get 60. Those percentages aren't our problem, but it'd be good that we have them.
mhm.
Yeah.
mm.
I know you guys were writing these really hard poems. How are you guys taking care of yourselves after you write a poem like this? A poem that pulls out of you. How do you take care of yourself afterwards? Do you dance? Do you read romance novel? What's your secret of sort of keeping care of the mind and your body after writing a body poem?
Mm, word. Also, Lee, I just want to say, I think I did respond because I'm like, that's all true. I'm like, what else to say?
I was like, yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
yep. But no, I think I like the way you framed that question, Cynthia, because I think sometimes I get questions from folks about how to sort of protect yourself in the act of writing. And I think in the act of writing, you kind of do have to leave yourselves to the ravishes of the truth sometimes, right? Which is not always fun. Um, so in the writing itself, sometimes I'm messed up, and crying and
Yeah.
and it's hard. And I'm really grateful for those hard poems. But so I love the idea of like after, right? Because sometimes you just need to be able to go there, right? Sometimes I don't write things because I know I'm not ready to go there. And that is also some, but there's
Docket poems. I have poems on a docket. I'm not ready
yeah,
to write that yet. I'm not ready to
yeah,
write that poem
exactly,
yet.
right. It's just like,
It's
ooh,
on a
can you stay
docket.
over there?
I'm
Can you
not
stay a little
ready.
sentence? I'm not ready yet. But but then when I'm ready there, I have to kind of let myself feel like, okay, cool. This might not be the funnest thing, but there's something that's knocking on me, telling me I must go there. After, I'll plan a little date for myself. I'll leave an activity like a walk or like a movie I've been wanting to see, or I'll make myself a good dinner, but just like something that is outside of the language, maybe something where I can actually stay silent because I've just done so much hard work in language. But something where I could just be quiet for a little bit and just enjoy a thing, right? I'm very much, I think the Midwestern suburban mom in me is always invested in getting a little sweet treat, you know. So I'm very down to be like, I just wrote a hard thing. Maybe we should go to that ice cream spot we like, you know. Or even just community as well, right? It's like, oh, I just wrote a hard thing. I know I have a friend that I can call and like we can talk about it. I can read it to her. We can talk about it for like 5-10 minutes, and then our conversation will move somewhere else, right? That sort of, so at that point I'm sort of summoning community to say, please see me as I've done this very hard thing and recognize it, and also help me come out of it a little bit so I can go continue to be a human again. But yeah. Just how do you have it's a little sweet reward. It's almost like it's kind of the ways you parent yourself a little bit, right? It's like, if you do this thing you don't like doing, I'll take you to Toys R Us, right? So it's like, if you do this poem that you know is gonna fuck you up, you can have a steak
Afterwards,
tonight. And
you're
like,
gonna get
okay, I can
Haagen-Dazs afterwards. Yeah, yeah. That's what I am. I'm like a Haagen-Dazs. I need to walk. I throw up the bat signal to a friend or the Gilmore Girls single to their friend. So about Gilmore Girls. I know there's no black people in it. Let's watch it anyway. I'll do that, or I'll do the little dance. Poem is done. 2 second dance party, and I'll leave my apartment for a bit. Let me just get out of this space. Yeah.
Mhm.
What about you guys, Meg and Leah? How do you take care of yourselves after writing a hard poem?
I could, but Meg, do you want to go?
I want to hear about the cooking.
How many ingredients you're using in these cookies? It's a
Oh, for
5-pot
me?
chili.
Oh,
Yes,
oh yeah.
for you, Leah.
I mean, I'm a Taurus and I love a sweet treat as well. And I'm already thinking about the sandwich I'm going to get after this. Not that this is hard, but I really am thinking about the sandwich that's coming. It's going to be delicious. Um, but it's going to be a chicken cutlet, arugula fried, mozzarella fried, eggplant.
Oh, you got
Yeah,
specifics.
it's chocolate middle-
Specifics.
It's so good. No,
Specifics. Specifics. Okay.
I'm a food motivated Taurus, and so is my at. And I would show you a picture, but she's grooming her genitals right now, so we're not going to do that. But sorry.
That should be
But
on
what I was
a
gonna
birthday
say-
card.
Seriously. But what I was gonna say though is like, I mean, I think what comes to mind is like, so, hopefully my 5th book of poetry is going to be out next year, and I've been working on it since 2019. Yeah, and Dinesh, different specifics, but when I read about your new book that you were like, yeah, it's my first in a minute, I was like, ooh, thank God there's somebody else. Of course, there's somebody else, because I started working on it in early pandemic, and then my sibling comrade Stacey Park Milburn died on May 20th, 2020, and I was in lockdown for a year in Seattle, and all kinds of things happened. Both my parents died, everybody died, just all the things, and it really I mean, I knew this, but I just was like, it's coming out now because I needed 4 years. And it wasn't like the poems were in the drawer the whole time, but I was like, my brother died, on her 33rd birthday, when we thought we were going to do our disabled QTPOC rom-com for Netflix together. And who was my North Star, in the light of our world. And for me, it was less of a like, let me get some ice cream, though I did do that, and more of a like, I really need to be like low, slow, turgid. Like it took me a while to read the stuff out loud because it wasn't just my grief. It was like everybody was like completely grief saturated. Like we were like, soil that had been rained on so much. It was like coastal flood advisory. Like we couldn't hold anymore, and so I think for me, some of how I take care of myself has not necessarily felt nice or fun, but it's been like, it's okay to give yourself 5 years. And I think that's been tricky for me because some of the tradition I come out with is something bad happens, you write a poem, and I have a lot of comrades and peers and mentors who have also pushed back against that because they're like, actually, it's real burnout to be like, oh, Katrina happened, write a poem. This happened, write a poem. It's like, that's not sustainable. And it kind of makes us the short order cooks of like poetic trauma response. And like, that's not the only way we should be or can be allowed to be as activist poets, like we need to, and that's the way I took care of my heart, was I was like, oh, I feel like my grief, through a lot of things, but including through the last 4 years of individual and collective grief knowledge, I'm like, now I'm in a place where I can release these well and they're going to be received well, but I needed to give myself that time. Yeah, that's one thing I would say.
I really appreciate that. I think like temporality is like a creative constraint, a consensual one, an unconsensual one is a thing I've been contending with. It turns out I don't, for me, feel that like books are a priority. Like took me a long time to be okay with, because everybody wants a book, or they want to know where the book is, or they want to know why it's been so long. And so every time I write a poem or I finish a poem, I'm conscious of the fact that there's some there's somebody in the ceiling, as we say in ASL. There's somebody in the ceiling who's like, one step closer. Are you there yet? Is it done? And I just kind of like ignore that shit. I'm a big crier. I'm a Pisces. I like a good walk. I like a good drive. I like a good cry. But to be quite frank, I think more often than not, I'm thinking about like, okay, I did the thing for me. What's the thing that I'm gonna do that builds on or commits to the thing that I'm actually concerned about, which is like poet as public servant, poet in the role of public service work in general, all kinds. I think that's hot. I think it's necessary. I think it's maybe not undervalued in any recognizable way, but we don't hold it up. And so it's helpful to me to like invest in it on purpose. And sometimes that involves, like more traditional modes of like teaching or like meeting with people and talking about their work. But sometimes it's just like, making sure that I don't fall into the same, like acculturated trap of English supremacy of my first book, where I have to go like read some texts, unteach myself things.
Yeah.
Feel good about the decisions I'm making in my work so I don't find myself, making poems that I'm going to have to like undo in another 10 years.
Yeah.
And then also, managing to maintain with grace and forbearance and deep joy the relationships that help us persist. I mean, praise be for y'all.
I know we got to wrap, but if I may say two quick things. One thing I want to say that for me, it wasn't just lying down still, though it was. But I also just want to say, like, shout outs to like the need for poetic community. And that's one, and the shout out I want to give is to the need for COVID safer and accessible poetic community, because honestly, it really, I mean, I did a lot of disabled Zoom poetry things, and it was good. And it's only been this year that I've been able to be back in person in a safe and accessible way, very briefly with other poets. And I was like, oh yeah, I really need this, or else I'm just going to turn into a short order cook slash service top slash husk of myself. And I will say, especially as the person I am, I got asked to do a lot of like, tell us how to do disability justice 101 shit. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that to a point, but I'm actually a poet. Like, I'm a poet and I need other poets to be weird with as the way through it. Like, that's also the cookie, is being able to be with y'all. Yeah,
Y'all the cookie.
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 I want to be a cookie. I love being a cookie. Oh,
Chocolate
yeah.
chip.
Definitely a cookie.
Chocolate
Anything
chip.
else?
Some
Come on.
M&Ms. Yes, in the cookie.
Thank
Isabella's
you so
back.
much. I'm so moved. This was such a beautiful conversation and reading. I'm especially Karen, I had to write this down, but Meg sharing, I'm still trying to figure out what rooms I'm allowed to be a body in. Just carrying that with me after this conversation, it's been tremendous. And thank you all for being with us as part of the Dodge Poetry Festival 2024.
Yeah.